Hey, what's up everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here once again. Today we are starting a brand new series, and this series is going to be talking about the Canadian metal scene. I'm going to be going from coast to coast throughout this series, doing a deep dive into the Canadian metal scene. So, I mean, there's tons of great bands up here in Canada. As a proud Canadian, I always enjoy talking about some Canadian content, and I thought this would be a fun idea to do and kind of just go like province by province across the country and talk about some of my favorite bands from each of those provinces. This is going to include like present bands as well as bands that maybe have disbanded that were only around in the past. I'm not including like borderline bands that maybe are hard rock or classic rock bands, because then this list would be huge. There's so many big name like hard rock, classic rock, Canadian bands as well. So I'm going to be sticking strictly to metal here, and hopefully this list will give you a bunch of new bands to check out. As usual, I want to get your recommendations as well. I'm sure there's a ton I'm missing and probably some I'm just not thinking of. This is basically off the top of my head. I do feel like Canada as a whole doesn't get the recognition that maybe it should in terms of countries that produce a lot of great metal bands. I mean, don't get me wrong, we're not Finland. We don't have a metal band at every corner here, but as you'll see from this series, I'm going to give you about 100 reasons and 100 reasons why, or 100 bands to check out that are Canadian, that kind of showcase that we do have some talent up here. Yeah, I'm not ranking these in any specific order. I'm just going to go alphabetically through the provinces. For this first edition in the series, I'm going to be talking about Western Canada, so I'm going to start in BC. I think I'll do BC and Alberta as part of this first edition. There'll probably end up being at least 3 or 4 different videos in this series that you can look forward to. So without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. So here we go. So starting in BC, British Columbia, the westernmost province if you don't know your Canadian geography. There's a lot of great bands from BC. Let's find out what my favorites are. So kicking it off, I am going with 3 Inches of Blood. This is a hard band to label. I mean, the power metal, traditional heavy metal, but with a big dose of like mellow death as well, especially in their early days. Had a lot of screaming and harsh vocals as well as the high-pitched power metal vocals. I'm going to be seeing them live this year at Manitoba Metal Fest. They have now reformed. They were disbanded for quite some time, but they've recently got back together. I don't know if they're going to be putting out any new material, but they are touring and they are coming to my city and headlining day 1 of Manitoba Metal Fest. So I'm super stoked for that. It's been a long time since I've seen them live. They have got 5 albums. They're all pretty solid. Definitely a band worth checking out. Up next, all-time classic, Blasphemy. Don't really need any introduction here. This is like one of the first like war metal bands, blackened death metal bands. Yeah, Fallen Angel of Doom, all-time classic for the genre for sure. And yeah, that's all I really need to say. They haven't put out a ton of material in their existence, weren't necessarily around to record a bunch of stuff throughout the years. But yeah, go check out their debut, Fallen Angel of Doom, all-time classic for war metal. Go check out Blasphemy if you haven't. Up next, going with a more modern example, Crystal Coffin. So this is another band that's kind of hard to describe. I'll loosely call them melodic black metal, but there's a lot of different influences going on here. They had a great album from last year. Oh, what the hell was that called? Curse of Immortality, I think? Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be misspeaking here, but that was a great album from last year. Just really cool stuff. Kind of got like some science themes going on. Concept albums, lyrically, just like including all the songs as part of the same concept. Really cool stuff. Definitely a band to keep your eye on and go check out if you haven't listened to. Up next, I'm going with Dungeon Serpent. This is some melodic death metal from BC. The only album they have released to date is titled World of Sorrows from 2021 and is fucking killer stuff. Think like Intestine Baalism, but Canadian instead of Japanese. Like, definitely a big influence from that band, I think, into Dungeon Serpent's sound. So if you are into them, you'll probably get some enjoyment here. I'm looking forward to, hopefully they're going to release another album in the near future, but at least we got this one to go on for now. Definitely worth checking out. Maybe a lesser known band if you haven't heard them. Strongly suggest you change that. Go check out Dungeon Serpent. Up next, go with some black metal with Liminal Shroud. So this is some atmospheric black metal. My introduction to the band was on their 2022 album, All Virtues Ablaze, which I really dug. Really awesome stuff. The album art was cool, and just the way they incorporate the atmospheres into their black metal. Atmospheric black metal is one of my favorite subgenres of metal, and they just really knocked it out of the park with that album. I haven't explored all their stuff yet, but that album is really solid, and yeah, definitely worth listening to. Go check out Liminal Shroud. Let's switch to some traditional heavy metal with Maule, M-A-U-L-E. I know there's another death metal band called Maule that's not Canadian, but this is Maule with an E at the end. I think they've only put out one album to date. Their self-titled debut was, I believe, from 2022, and it's very Iron Maiden-esque. Almost think like the Paul Di'Anno years of Iron Maiden. That's probably where they got their main inspiration and influence. So if you're into that, it's kind of got like a punky edge to it in parts. Just straight ahead traditional heavy metal, really enjoyable, fun album. Go check them out. All right, up next, I'm going with Scythia. This is a band that's no longer together. They have broken up, but this was a mix of like progressive folk metal with power metal. Back in the day, one of my bands actually opened up for Scythia when they rolled through town, so that was really cool. Got to meet a couple of the guys and talk to them and hang out at the show. And yeah, this band has just brought a really cool approach to like their folky power metal. They had an oboe player in the band and just really like folky goodness that's really epic. And yeah, a really cool, interesting band. I can't even remember how many albums they have. I should have made better notes here. They have at least 3 or 4 albums. I haven't even heard all of them, to be honest. I've heard definitely their first couple albums and a few songs from the later stuff. But yeah, a cool band. They were great to see live. Too bad they're not together anymore, but go check out Scythia if you have not heard them. Up next, going with Spell. So this is some traditional heavy metal, bordering on like hard rock, but I still included them because there's enough metal here for them to qualify on this list. I know it gets nitpicky with some of these genre tags, but whatever. Spell is just like old school, straight ahead heavy metal, hard rock. Nothing necessarily that's gonna blow your socks off with originality, but they kind of wear their influences on their sleeve. But it's really well done. It's catchy tunes, just solid musicians. All in all, a great band. Go check out Spell. Up next, a band that kind of burst onto the scene last year, Tribunal. This is some gothic doom metal. Their album from last year, The Weight of Remembrance, is really top-notch stuff. Major, like, My Dying Bride influence. It's got the strings in there. You've got clean vocals and harsh vocals. Just really beautifully composed songs. And yeah, that album just, it really blew me away. Solid, solid stuff. Looking forward to more music from them. But yeah, go check out Tribunal if you have not heard them yet. Up next, one of the best Canadian power metal bands, in my opinion, Unleash the Archers. So these days, they're more of like a straight-ahead power metal band. In the early days, it was kind of a mix of mellow death and power metal. Had the harsh vocals and then also the powerful, clean vocals of Brittany Slays, which are really the showcase of this band. Her vocals are absolutely amazing. I believe they're putting out a new album this year, so I'm very much looking forward to that. But yeah, over the course of their career, they've put out a string of really solid albums, Apex being my favorite, but their latest Abyss was really good as well, and even their earlier stuff is still pretty decent. Also, all in all, yeah, like I said, probably one of the best Canadian power metal bands. Probably don't need me to talk much more about them. They're pretty well known, but yeah, solid band, Unleash the Archers. Up next, maybe a lesser known black metal band, Vastatum. This is some atmospheric black metal. They put out their one and only album in 2021, Mercurial States of Revelation. I did a whole review of this album when it came out, actually, back a few years ago, and it just was really solid. It blew me away. The riffs are awesome. I'm hoping that they put out new music soon as well, but if you have not checked out this album and are just looking for maybe some lesser known black metal, look no further. Go check them out. Sticking with black metal, up next, Vital Spirit. This is another, like I said, black metal band. They kind of bring in the Western themes, so obviously some comparisons will be to a band like Wayfarer, but it's not exactly the same style of bringing in the Western themes. This is a little more aggressive on the black metal side, while still just bringing in those tinges and atmosphere to give it a different vibe. Their album, Still as the Night, Cold as the Wind from 2022 was one of my favorites from that year. Just absolutely amazing stuff. Definitely a band to keep your eye on and one of the best bands from BC. I got one more here, Wormwitch. another black metal band, but also bringing in some like crust as well. It's not just straight ahead black metal. It's got that punky flavor to it. It's just a lot of fun. Their latest album, Wolf Hex, from a few years ago, is really solid. Yeah, just got those crusty black metal riffs. Really awesome stuff. All in all, definitely go check it out. I'm realizing that I think I missed a band earlier. My writing's all over here. I'm trying to do this alphabetically, but I missed Conqueror. How could I miss Conqueror? Another war metal band that's very similar to Blasphemy and Revenge, who I will talk about later from a different province. But yeah, if you're looking for a war metal fix, go check out all of those bands. Some great Canadian style war metal. Anyways, that was it for BC. Now I'm going to move on to Alberta, the next province in the western sequence, moving across to the east. Once again, if you don't know your Canadian geography, that's how it's going. The next video will focus on Saskatchewan and Manitoba more than likely. But for today, let's do Alberta and then we'll wrap it up. So once again, similar to BC, I got quite a few bands here to talk about. And let's kick it off with Begrime Exemious. This is some blackened death metal, very raw, old school approach. Their album from a couple years ago, Rotting in the Afterbirth. Aftermath. Sorry, not Afterbirth. That's a good album title too. But yeah, Rotting in the Aftermath. Just really solid, almost like elements of, let's say, like Angel Corpse. I can hear some influence there, but just really solid riffs. Exactly what you want in this kind of old school approach. Definitely a band to go check out. Up next, we'll go a little more old school with Disciples of Power. This is some thrash metal with some hints of death metal in there. I mean, their all-time classic Power Trap from 1989, so this is more of an old school band. I think they're still alive and kicking these days. I honestly have not heard every album by this band, but I've heard their early works. And yeah, just a solid, straight-ahead, thrashy death metal band. More on the thrash side, I think, than the death metal side, but a little bit of both. Kind of right in the middle of those genres, if you will. You know kind of what you're looking, what you would be in store for with the era and the style of sound. But yeah, maybe not as well known as other bands in the genre. Go check out Disciples of Power. Up next, let's go with a more modern example of some epic heavy metal with Gatekeeper. I absolutely love this band. They've only got 2 full lengths to date, each with a different vocalist. Their debut album actually had the vocalist that's now in Traveler, and their latest album, the vocalist that replaced him, did a superb job as well. Yeah, the debut was East of Sun. Their one from last year was From Western Shores. Both absolutely killer albums. If you like your heavy metal epic and just old school style, go check out Gatekeeper. You will not be disappointed. Awesome, awesome stuff. Let's switch back to some black metal up next with Idolatry. This is like old school raw black metal, very dark and sinister, angry and menacing black metal. If that's what you're looking for, go check them out. A solid Canadian band from Alberta. All right, up next, I kind of name dropped them earlier. Revenge, blackened death metal, war metal. Another band that's very much similar to Blasphemy and Conqueror. I mean, these bands kind of have ties together as well. So everything that I've said about the other bands kind of applies here as well. I'm not saying they're the same band. That's not what it is. But same style, same overall genre. Definitely worth checking out if you're into anything like that. Up next, one of my absolute favorite modern bands, and that is Riot City. This is some traditional heavy metal mixed with speed metal. I just absolutely love this. This is like Judas Priest meets early Halloween. They only have 2 albums to date, Burn the Night and Electric Elite. Their debut album, Burn the Night, the guitarist was the vocalist at the same time, and he hit such high notes and just shredding guitar. Absolutely love it. Then he decided not to sing anymore. They recruited a different singer for the second album, which maybe would have had me worried at first, but as soon as I heard it, those worries are put to rest. The new vocalist absolutely slays, probably even better than the first vocalist. But, I mean, the first vocalist still does backup vocals. I don't take anything away. I absolutely love both of these albums. Goddamn amazing. I would be hard-pressed to pick one or the other, to be honest. I absolutely love them. I don't know how they haven't toured through Winnipeg yet. They are Canadian. They seem to always be touring across Europe and everywhere else. Hopefully one day they come across the country so I can see them live, because I think it would be a kick-ass show. But yeah, easily one of my favorite Canadian bands. Not even just Canadian. One of my just favorite modern like heavy metal bands. Riot City. Go check them out. Sticking with traditional heavy metal, up next, Striker. So these guys are a little over the top for sure, especially if you watch their music videos, but they're having a ton of fun, and their music is a lot of fun too. Yes, it's cheesy, but they are a great live band. I did see them a few years ago. Their newest album from this year, Ultra Power, like, it is so like 80s worship. It sounds like it would be the soundtrack to like one of those cheesy skiing movies from the 80s where they're just skiing down the slopes and having some stupid competitions, and it's just like epic cheesy metal in the background. This is exactly the kind of music that would go for that. But they're having a good time. It's fun stuff. Definitely go check it out. If anything I just said sounds like it might be up your alley. Up next, Thorazine. So this is another band that has disbanded. This is like death metal, but more on the grind side as well, kind of a mixture of grindy death metal. They only had 3 full lengths. They have been done for like honestly over 20 years, but this was actually one of the first live bands I saw when I was, I don't know, 18 years old. They were touring through town and they were playing with a few local bands from here in Winnipeg, and they just absolutely blew me away. I bought a couple of their CDs at the show, and their album Geneticide that they were touring for on that tour, I still play it on the regular. It's just amazing, grindy death metal. Vocals are sick. All in all, if you have not heard them, go check them out. Up next, kind of cheating here. I kind of name dropped this band earlier. Going with Traveler. They're not strictly a Canadian band anymore, but they have Canadian members. I think they kind of started in Canada, but they are an international band. But I still wanted to mention them because I absolutely love them. This is some traditional heavy metal that's just top-notch, very Iron Maiden-esque. Their debut self-titled album was goddamn amazing. The follow-up was good as well. And yeah, they had a new one drop last month also. So yeah, go check these guys out if you somehow have not heard them. I feel like they're kind of on the up and up, one of the bigger names in this kind of new wave of traditional heavy metal. Up next, I think this is the last one I'm talking about today, and that is Wake. So these days they play like blackened death metal, kind of a mixture of that. When they started out, they were more on like the grindy, crusty side of things, which to be honest, I'm not a huge fan necessarily of their earlier works. That's just not a style that I love, but their last couple of albums are pretty fucking solid. Devouring Ruin and then Thought Formed Ascent, like those are great goddamn albums. So yeah, depending which style you like more, maybe you'll like the earlier stuff better than their later stuff, but all in all, a solid band. That wraps up my list for BC and Alberta. Like I said, there will be more additions in this series. The next one will probably tackle Saskatchewan and Manitoba, and I'll just keep moving along from there. I just figured like talking about a bunch of Canadian bands. Hopefully this gave you some new bands to check out, and as usual, give me your picks down below. Let me know some bands from either BC or Alberta that I didn't mention. Could be that I just forgot about them, or maybe I haven't heard of them, and I'm always looking for recommendations. So give them to me down below. And until next time, Hammer Heart Metal Reviews, out.